Alive Again family. Welcome to day 29 of our Bible in a Year readings. Today we're going to cover Job chapters 35 through 37. So far, the last few days have been nothing but Job's friends beating him down emotionally with harsh words and half-truths about God. It seems like their lecturing will never end. It's now Elihu's turn to speak. And I want to point out something that Elihu said in chapter 36. He said that God does not withdraw his eyes from the righteous. Remember, Job has been feeling forgotten. He feels that God doesn't remember who he is or see him through his suffering. And although Elihu was counting Job among the unrighteous, we know that God was proud of Job. God knew how obedient and righteous Job was when we started reading this book. Elihu was essentially agreeing that God had lifted his protective hand from Job because of some wickedness, but we know that's not the reality. God never forgot Job. God never withdrew his eyes from him. Elihu mentioned that God is far above us, that we don't always understand his ways, and he was right in that sense, and maybe he should have applied this ideation to his own behavior and his own words. But Elihu was too far from God, placing him high enough that he was completely detached and unreachable. There was a boundary between us and God that really put a damper on relationship. But our God is a God of relationship. Our God is ever present, and he walks with us through trials and tribulations. Elihu and his friends again are discounting God's sovereignty. Elihu is accusing Job of being stubborn and rebellious by not admitting to his sin. And Job is at a point where he feels that his righteousness doesn't matter, that he's being punished although he hasn't done anything wrong. And it's starting to feel like God doesn't care either way. But God does delight in our righteous living. God does delight in the moments where we choose him. And God's heart breaks in the moments where we choose pain and suffering. You might be thinking, who would choose pain and suffering? We do. Every time we sin, every time we fall back on a familiar bad habit, every time we fail to seek first his kingdom and righteousness, we choose pain and suffering. Because the consequences of sin is death. The only way to an abundant life is through Jesus. When we give to God, it's for our benefit. He is all sufficient, perfect, lacking nothing. So why does God want us to serve him, to give to him? So that we can have a taste of his goodness, his provision. When we serve and submit to God, it's not for God's benefit. He doesn't need anything from us. No, it's for our benefit. We're the ones who gain anything from this transaction. We have nothing to give God except our surrender. Nothing but our broken and tainted hearts. And yet, that's all he wants. And do you know why he wants our hearts? Because he wants to fix them. He wants to make them better. He wants to give us life and life in abundance. He wants to love us with a selfless love like the perfect Father he is. So give him your heart today. Let him replace your stony heart with a heart of flesh that is responsive to his touch. He loves you, and his eyes are always on you.